Hi AP students, I just wanted to highlight 3 things for your homework. First, I wanted to remind you what engrams are. We are doing letter-based engrams, and a letter-based engram is a sequence of n consecutive letters. So if I'm doing 2 grams, those would be 2 consecutive letters. If I'm doing 3 grams, or trigrams, that would be 3 consecutive letters. So let's consider the string in the sunshine. If I was going to make a list of all of the 2 grams in this string, I would start at in, then n space, then space t, then th, then he, then e space, then space s, then su, and so on. So these are all 2 grams of the string in the sunshine. And all I'm doing is I'm looping from the beginning to the end, and I'm taking each substring of length 2. If I was going to make trigrams, starting at the beginning, I would have n space t, space th, the, and so on. So those are trigrams. All right, what I was asking you to do for your bag class was to create a static method. Let's see if Tomer's done it. Right, create a static method called getBagOfEngrams that returns a bag object. You give it the input text and the number for what kind of engram are we generating. So if this input is 3, you're going to make trigrams. If this input is 2, you're going to make 2 grams. And all you're going to do is you're going to take this text and you're going to loop over it and get out every single numgram and then add that gram to a bag and then return to the bag at the end. Just like getBagOfWords, you're going to split this text on space and loop over all of those words and add each one into your bag and then return it. Okay, that was item number 1. Item number 2, let's review from class how you get a random word. This is what Tomer and I did. So we create a random index between 0 and the size of the number of words. We get the key set out. And the key set is the set of all the words that we've added to the bag so far. Then we convert that key set to an array. The size of this array can be anything. This is just telling it what data type of array should it return. And so now it's returned a string array of that comes from the original key set. And now you can use a random index into that array to get a random word. All right, last of all, let's look at this issue of most common and least common words. So because we don't want to loop over all the words every time somebody asks for the most or least common, we're going to store the most and least common words in string variables like this. Tomer has set the most common and least common words to be initialized to empty string. The most common frequency is how many times the most common word actually occurred. And so he set that to min value. Least common is set to max value. All right, let's see how we might use this. So where we are actually adding the word, this stuff adds the word to the bag. And then underneath, we're going to try and update things. Let's pretend that we had not done any of this stuff. So here's something that's close but wrong. So the idea here is I'm asking the bag for the frequency of the word we just added. And I'm saying, is that frequency bigger than the most common frequency so far? Sorry. Is that frequency larger than the frequency of the most commonly occurring word that we've seen so far? If it is, then the one we just added is more commonly occurring. So we'll reset most common frequency to be that word's frequency, and we'll set the word to be the word. All right, that's probably going to work okay. It doesn't work for the minimum case. In the minimum case, we are looking at the frequency of the word we just added. If it's smaller than the least common frequency, then we set the least common frequency. Here's the problem with this. Imagine that we're adding words like the following. We're going to add hi, apple, hi. Okay, so we add the word high. The frequency of the word high we just added is smaller than what this was initialized to, which is max value. So we set least common frequency to be 1, and we set least common word to be high. All right, we add high again. Now the frequency of high is 2, which is not smaller than 1, so we skip it. Next word, high. Now the frequency of high is 3, so we skip it. Now we add apple. All right, well, so we've seen high 3 times, and we haven't seen apple at all yet. So apple should get set to be the new least common. The problem is, when we say bag.getApple, that evaluates to 1 because we've only seen apple once. Least common frequency is still 1 because that's what it was the last time we set it, which was when we added the word high in the first place. The problem is we don't reset least common frequency as we continue to add new high values. So even though high has occurred 3 times, this is still 1. That's a problem. So we could do this. We could say bag.get least common word. And that would fix the problem that I was just talking about, because now, since the least common word is high, we're comparing the frequency of the new word to the real frequency of the least common word. And because we've added it a bunch, this has gone up. So now, when we add apple, it's actually going to be smaller, and we'll reset the least common word. That's going to work just fine, except the very first word we add. The very first word we add is not in the bag yet. So if we say bag.get empty string, this is actually going to return null because empty string is not an element in the bag. So that's going to crash the program. So one solution we could do is, instead of asking the bag, we could use our getter method, getCount, because getCount first checks if it's in the bag. If it is, we return the count. Otherwise, we return 0 because it's not in the bag. So if down here we say getCount least common word, the first time we go through, if we get count of the empty string, that's going to return 0. The problem is we're doing this after we've already added the word in. So if I'm adding the very first word, and the word is high, bag.get high is going to give us 1 because we've just added it to the bag. But the least common word so far has a frequency of 0 when we access it this way. So it's still not working. One way to fix it is you could move this to before you add the word. Another way you could fix it is, let's deal with the first case specially. We'll say if least common word equals the empty string. We're running this inside add so if least common word equals the empty string, that must mean we're adding the first word ever into the bag. And if that's true, it's safe to set least common word to be whatever word we just added, because it's the first word, and therefore it's also the least common word. So altogether now, that's going to fix all of the problems, but it does take a little bit of thinking in order to get this to work smoothly. All right, I wish you luck with your programs. I will see you on Monday.